Oh, okay. I've never called you Jan K girl, but I will do it. I can get used to that.
She got us all calling her Jan now.
Okay. Good to know. Hey Ronnie, how's your day going so far?
Ugh.
Oh, I don't know what that laughter means.
It's uh, long, long. It was a long day, but it was
Oh.
good.
Did you have to go to work?
I'm technically off. I don't think anyone else knows what that means. But I didn't work too much, but I just had like a few personal things pop up, and yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. But thanks for doing this with me, Thieves.
Yeah, no problemo. Now, I'm you do have the question. I know you told me you had questions and you showed me some of the questions, but you have the questions, right? You
Yeah,
want me
I have them kind of all set up. Um, and I mean, I guess we can go ahead and get started. I kind of I tried to get them as organized as I possibly could, and I consolidated a few of them because a lot of the questions that I've gotten have been from even like, I got so far behind with it because of everything going on with my dad. And so I just, like, some of them are irrelevant now,
Hmm.
just because so much has happened within the fandom, um, and Lukola specifically and everything. So like a lot of the questions that were in my DMs that I never got around to, like, I know there was one that I remember explicitly saying, because it was written really, really well and it was very thoughtful, and I was like, I need to sit with this a minute and I'll get back to you.
Hmm.
I can't find it for the life of me. Uh,
Z-
and I
Z- Zigzag did say I didn't send any questions, but I can throw some in the comments in time if that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I just what was that that just popped up though?
I just wanted to see what it was. It's a lightning
Oh,
Q
okay.
and A, so I just wanted to see what it was, and that just was the one that popped up.
I mean, we can talk about that.
Wait, I
Um,
said I didn't know I was supposed to send questions. Well, no, no, this is Ronnie had been getting questions,
yeah,
and she had just collated them to have this conversation.
yeah. And as I say, like, there were some questions that I got because it was from a while back. They're irrelevant now, so I'm not gonna touch on those. But I kind of summarized them to like a few that I was getting pretty repetitively, um, and some that kind of link together inadvertently. And I don't even know if some of these are still kind of relevant in the sense that the folks who actually ask them even care about it anymore. Because
So how long? Wait, how long has it been then that you've been holding these questions?
um, some of them are fresh, but like, I want to say probably like three of them are from like consolidated from a couple months ago.
Hmm, gotcha.
And as I say, I edited a few out that were like super specific. Like, who do you think is in the black and white photo? Because like that was ages ago, and I don't even think we ever got an answer. And so everything again is just mainly opinion. So as I say, I was really interested in having this be a conversation, and I always like having conversations with Phoebe. Um, and I think it would probably be good for kind of the both of us to kind of touch base on some of the opinions that we hold, and just kind of how everything has evolved for us. Um, and I think it was I felt like it was also appropriate for me to talk this through with Phoebe, because she was also the first person that kind of integrated me into the fandom. Um, the very, very first time that I did a live was with you. So I felt like it was just kind of like a full circle sort of moment. um, but yeah, so I divided everything into kind of three categories. One was just kind of like a personal update because I did get a lot of personal questions from like what was going on in my own life because there's just been a lot. And so I did want to say one of the questions that I did get was about my mammogram, which I appreciate, guys, because I did have to get a diagnostic mammogram done after my original. And it's all good, it's all clear, but I had to wait a month before I could get it, which is not normal. They usually do it in like a week, but they had me wait. And now, even though I know that I'm in the clear after the diagnostic mammogram and the ultrasound, now I'm fighting my insurance because they say it's not covered and they want me to pay about $1,000.
Oh, wait, that's a whole other story.
Let's, decide on whether or not you want to find out if you have cancer or not. But, it's $979. So,
Yeah.
there's that. My dad's good. His first procedure went well, and it was a cath procedure because he's diabetic and he's stage 4 kidney failure, and so he does dialysis 3 times a week. And he gets blockages in his arms, and so this is the third time we had to do kind of like they take like a little balloon and just kind of open up the veins and get stuff flowing again. And it went well. It went 10 times better than the first 2 times, which is great.
Good.
Yeah. And so he's doing good. But we have the second one on the 31st, and that is going to be a partial amputation of a finger. He's already had 3 fingers that have had amputations. So, yeah, it's a whole thing. So hopefully that one goes well as well. But as I say, I have been distracted and therefore not have been very active. And also that's why my patience has run thin. And as I've mentioned in a couple of Phoebe's lives in the comments, is why I also kind of keep myself at a distance sometimes because I just don't have the bandwidth to show to extend the amount of grace that I typically like to when something kind of triggers me. And you touched on this morning, Phoebes, and I wish I could have stayed on for the whole live, but I missed. I'm not sure how long you stayed on, but you had mentioned about how folks get dismissive, particularly when the topics start feeling like it's an attack on like common sense and like a specific kind of fundamental interpretation or how you kind of view things, and if you come across an idea that challenges that a bit is when folks kind of get impatient with things. And so that's around the line where it's just like I have to be in a very specific state of mind to be able to find that balance when I'm not stressed out and dealing with all these other things. So hence I just kind of back away and I put myself in a corner and I just watch for the most part. But yeah, those were the only 2 personal things that I kind of wanted to update everyone on because I did get a few DMs, and I appreciate it, guys. I really do. I appreciate the DMs and I appreciate the concern. A few people have been praying for my dad, and it's been lovely, and yeah, I appreciate it. I really do. Um, okay. So on to the lighter fare. And specifically, the Lukola related items. I only have 3. And these are the ones that I sent to Phoebes earlier, just so that she knew that these were coming. And also, if anyone else has any specific ones, they can also drop it in the chat as well. Because I've been so out of the loop, I don't even know what's relevant right now.
And I think Rena's in the space. So Rena, I know that you have like pinning capability. So if there's a question that you see that needs to be answered, feel free to pin. I think Rena's still in the space. Stay if you are. No.
I thought that they couldn't do the pinning when we were in a.
Oh, is that the case? Oh, blasted.
That was my understanding the last few times I've been in a live.
Oh,
So I'm not sure.
That's the point. That's the most important time to have with pinning capability. Like, why wouldn't they have pinning capability when you need it the most?
Yeah, I don't know. I was wondering that too, because when I used to stream on Twitch, it was easier to do that, like with groups and pinning comments and stuff. I don't know why TikTok didn't adapt that, but
Interesting. Okay, well then never mind. We'll just try to keep our eyes open.
yeah.
Or feel free to repeat the question if we happen to still not see it.
I wish they even had like a little like raising hand thing.
Yeah. Wonder if there is something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Uh, trying to see if there's anything. Nah.
Yeah, Rena's saying that she doesn't think it'll let her pin.
No. But I do see that we have voice effect. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry.
I mean, we can.
Oh, there's Tiffany with her panda. No, just kidding.
Okay, so I think the 3, and again, I've never specifically touched on a lot of the opinions revolving around some speculation stuff, because that's not my thing. But I mean, obviously we're all humans and we all have thoughts and opinions, and as much as I love that trend that's going around of we listen and don't judge. No, damn well that's a lie. But so the 3 that
we listen and assess.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it's softer.
It is softer,
and it still accomplishes the same.
yeah, but I can't lie. I just can't. But like, there's no point in denying it. I judge quietly. I judge quietly.
Oh, Cindy says I judge and don't listen.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, because we all have these moments. We're all human beings. We're not perfect. We all make mistakes. I've snapped at a few people in the past. I've never said I was perfect. I've never given like a how-to manual. And I never function in absolutes. You guys know that. And that's what I constantly tell Phoebe too, is just like, I can't speak in absolutes. I can't say that there's something that I believe in 100% definitively, to where I don't have space to be incorrect about something. That's how I live my entire life. Like I willfully go out of my way and want to be proven wrong at all times. I specifically look for it. If I find somebody who challenged the way that I think and has me thinking in a different way, and if it's a guy, I immediately find them attractive. I don't care what they look like. They can have one eye and be a cyclops. And if he says something that makes me think differently, I'm just kind of like, oh, I am intrigued, and I'm gone. So that's just how I function. Um, but anyhow, we're already off topic. What? Okay.
Oh, am I supposed to be moderating whenever it starts to go that way? Is that what I should have done? I thought it was supposed to tie in somehow with where you were going to go. So
I mean, it does. It all kind of circles. So because it's all behavioral. So on this first section of just the three specific Lukola questions that I got, and Phoebes, I can also I'm just gonna ask you if you want to give your opinion, and then I'll share mine, and we'll see how that goes. And folks can participate as well in the chat. Um, okay, so what is your status on the ship currently?
and you're saying you wanted me to go first, and then you share. What is the status of me on the ship? As everybody knows, I'm an end game Lukola shipper, so I am a strong believer that if they want to end up together in the future, they can because they have the chemistry that they had. Sometimes like there's so much distance from it sometimes that I start to forget, and then I see a clip, and then I'm like, oh yes, this is the reason why why I boarded on the ship and got on the Lido deck. Um, the I think for me, the biggest thing that drives me is the reminder to myself that Luke and Nicola are real human beings. So the shipping is different than if I was shipping fictional characters. Like I'm like Team Pacey, love Joey and Pacey, right? Um, and that ship was always like set, right? The harder thing for me is when you're shipping real people that includes their autonomy and their right to make their own decisions, and it might be different than what I want. And so what I will say is I'm on the ship because to me it's not over. Even if some people feel like it's over. However, once I know it is fully over, if it ever is ever over, I because they say it's over or something like that, then I will respectfully get off the ship. Now, if there's any semblance that it is restored, I will board it back, But I think I'm always trying to figure out what is the most respectful thing for me to do as a person who recognizes their humanity and recognizes that there are not characters but real people. I think that's the struggle bus that I have. Like in the beginning, it was like this is so obvious for me, and then as things have progressed, I'm like, am I forcing something on them that maybe they don't want for themselves yet? I don't know. So then it's like, okay, I'm gonna keep my hands open because I'm an endgame Lukola shipper. Nothing really phases me, even if there's things in between that might be happening or may not be happening. I don't know. It could all be that's what's up for speculation at this point, right? And so at the end of the day, I just want to be the most respectful I can be to them as people. I think is what it comes down to.
I like that. I mean, I like that. Um, I think the last person posted about it and asked the fandom as a whole if they were still on the ship was Angela, if I remember correctly on her page. And I think what I commented, and that must have been, I don't remember if that was last week or the week before, because everything is yesterday to me right now. So I think what I said was that I have a private room and I like step out every now and again, but I'm pretty much just hanging out in the suite, minding my own business. And go into very exclusive rooms. So, and I just kind of dip my toe in. Now, for anyone who kind of started following me when I basically after the first live that I had with Phoebes, when I started talking about like how I kind of study fandom and stuff, Um, my own personal feeling about shipping real people was, again, I don't work with definitives, so it was just kind of like it was just something I hadn't done, um, and I wasn't. Um, I had never seen a healthy example of it, which is what made me hesitant. And the last one that I had seen up close, because I was relatively part of a fandom, was the Outlander one, which um, the particular shipping that goes on with Katrina and Sam, who are the leads of Outlander. There's a section of that shipping behavior that goes to the point where they're making fictional stories saying that her child is Sam's, and that it's like it's a whole other fiction that's written that completely negates the fact that she's a married woman
Mm.
and she has a child. But there's and I don't know how big that group is, because as soon as I started seeing that discussion, I was like, I'm out. um, of people just creating these stories that, you know, around this woman's real life, which I'm like, that must be something to see. Um, how do these people just believe, you know, this fiction? And so it's really it's difficult for me sometimes to see some of the parallels, because again, I feel like people um, fall into patterns a lot when it comes to fandom. Um, and I wish that the patterns sometimes weren't so patterny, so like so persistent. Um, but it's interesting how that happens. And as I say, luckily Nick and Luke aren't married, and they don't have children yet. Um, and so I think it's just going to be interesting to see how the shipping progresses if they end up, you know, not being together and having families. So, like you say, whatever ends up being the most respectful way, obviously, I think that's what we would all hope to aim for, in regards to respecting them enough to accept them simply living, um, and still appreciating their magic as individuals and as friends, or, you know, a couple or what have you. Um, I I'm still on the ship, as I say, because I think there's a magic there that was undeniable, which I think is what pulled all of us in the first place. Um, but I'm of the type of person also that, like, if they're, and I posted about this months ago, if their relationship ends up being something like Tony and Carrie, it's still it's still just a mess. It's a glorious mess, but it's a mess. We're watching it. But if they have that kind of dynamic in the future for years to come, um, I find that satisfying because I love watching them. Um, but that's just me personally. So yeah, I mean, I have the hopes for them, but I don't have much else kind of tied to that. It's just kind of like a waiting game, as we all know, because no one has uh, control of that. So yeah, but that's basically the status. If anyone wants any more specifics to that, please ask. But yeah.
I will say real quick, Ronnie. Dominique said something really further on, and that I liked about like partying with her new friends on the ship. You know, and I think that's the part of why I will always be on the ship too, in a lot of regards, where it is all the people you met along the way. Sometimes it's the process that is the most meaningful, really. Like there are some amazing people I have come across through this fandom. And no matter how splintered it has become, or how things have turned out, like once upon a time, it was one of the most beautiful, and sometimes still is one of the most beautiful things I have experienced. And it really came at a time in my life that I really needed it before I knew I needed it. um, so, so I am thankful for that aspect of it, and I will never like look back on that time and wish I made a different decision. Like I am glad I got on the ship. I'm glad I'm on the ship. Um, and so it is one of those things where it I think it is just, what does it mean um to stay on the ship? Like what if this, like I've always thought the ship was gonna head into a specific destination, but what if the destination shifts? And like,
It's just
would I have felt like, oh, the ride was not worth it? And I would say no. I would always say that the ride was worth it because I met so many amazing people, you being one of them, that I would never want to take that back. I would not want to go back to a time that Ronnie wasn't around in my, like I didn't realize you existed. You know what I mean? Like I'm glad. I'm glad for that. So
cry. It's too early. Bad feeding. No, same, bud. But yeah, no, I mean, and here's something that I wanted to touch on generally. That's part of the just like the general fandom conversation, because that was a good segue to it. Is with my history of fandom is the easiest way to make connections. Fandom is the easiest way to make friends because you're already coming in at a common base. You're coming in at a commonality that's very is established. So we all know we agree on that one thing. And then, as we say, because it's called a ship, usually when you're taking a cruise, the being on the ship is the main point of the journey. Sure, you're reaching destinations and you get off and enjoy whatever's going on at each destination. But if you're not enjoying the actual cruise itself, then there's no real point on you cruising. That's why some people don't cruise. And so that's the main thing. I mean, I feel like the last couple of times that I've made worthwhile friends, my best friend currently, Rachel, I met in 2014, and I met going to San Diego Comic-Con because we were all part of a campaign that was going on at that time called Nerd HQ, and a huge group of us.
is that Chuck?
Yeah.
I love Chuck.
Yeah. So, yes, we all, and here, this is a great example actually, because a lot of the conversations that have been coming up, especially what Phoebe has been doing on her lives regarding celebrity and the Baldoni Lively case. This is a good personal example for me. My nerdy, I want my Nerdy HQ campaign was part of saving a show called Chuck back on ABC. I don't know if anyone remembers it.
Yes, and I loved it.
I love that
Was
show.
it ABC? I thought it was NBC for some reason.
It is NBC. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was always surviving and getting renewed by the skin of its teeth. It was constantly on the chopping block, and the lead actor was Zachary Levi, and he started this campaign where he was doing like an off-site kind of like mini convention outside of SDCC, where he would raise money for Operation Smile. So it was all charity based, and he would do panels and photo ops with all the same folks who are at SDCC, but only for $25. So, and everything would go to charity, and it was doing really, really well. And we all kind of bonded, and there was like a huge group of us. And as I say, on a whim, we all started talking on Twitter, when Twitter was decent. And we all made plans, complete strangers, to meet in San Diego. And luckily, none of us ended up being a serial killer. And it all worked out. And so I have some of my closest friends come from that group and from that fandom. Now, Zachary Levi, as of late, has turned into a controversial figure due to certain political leanings and such. We got in a bad way also with the Broadway community because he said some inappropriate things. So a lot of times, a lot of the positive history and experience that I have in regards to meeting my friends and all of those experiences do not cease to exist just because the main person that organized these things ends up being not what we thought he was. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of times I think folks have like a difficulty balancing their ideals or ideas of an individual, and not being able to see the negative side of certain things because they have a positive experience with someone. Just because your experience is positive doesn't mean that that negative doesn't exist. And vice versa.
And so, ask you a quick question about that. About that whole ability to separate potentially, right? I've always wanted a Chuck movie because of the way that's the episode, like that final episode. I mean, I have ideas of what I think that show ended. I have thoughts of like her remembering things, you know? So if they ever did finally put in like what people had rooted for a really long time, which was a Chuck movie, do you think emotionally you're able to enjoy it for what like that show was, or do you think you feel like it's changed for you?
Two things. One, I would be incredibly impressed if he could get everyone who worked with him to agree to be on to do a movie with him at this point. And if he did, and Yvonne came back, and Adam came back, and all of the original cast came back, and we're like, sure, I would be open to seeing it and experiencing it for them. So I would be supporting the rest of the cast and whoever else is working on the project, because it takes a village. It's never just the one person. And I think that's another thing too, where that's what makes the blurred line with this industry really difficult to navigate, because I know like it's like the whole conversation revolving around Harry Potter and what you're supporting and stuff. Like it can get in deep. So it's one of those things where it's an individual thing for everyone. But typically when you're trying to like punish one individual, it affects so many people when it comes to the creative work. So it's for me personally, I'd be open to it because I did love the story. And as I say, I love the cast. I did, regardless of him. Any interesting questions yet?
Oh no, I was just saying why I'm not watching the Seahawks on Prime. I was like, totally forgot that they were going to be playing, and I already told you this day, and so I'm like, now mind you, I hate to say this, Ronnie, but if it was the Steelers and it was Russ playing, I may have. No, just kidding. But I mean, I'm trying to stay as excited for my Seahawks the same way I was excited for my Seahawks when Russ was playing. But it's just different. But
No, I would have totally been okay if you would have messaged me like we need to reschedule my
No, this is good. This is good.
because I'm in Texas. I know how that goes. Even though I don't do the sporty balls, I understand. Um, okay, so the second Lukola one is the ring. The ring keeps popping up. So what are your thoughts on the ring?
Um, so this actually came up like, was it last night or 2 nights ago? Days kind of mesh together, so I'm not quite sure. So um, the first thing I think of is like the Saved by the Bell, when I used to love Saved by the Bell, and Kelly Kapowski got a ring from Zach Morris, and she was like, "See the ring," and he was like, "See the ring." But anyways, so what's my thoughts on it? Um, I did a video right when I first saw her with it, uh, and found out what it was, and I was like, "Oh my word! This must mean that this is a sign of a relationship status, because that's what typically that kind of ring is associated with." And then I got a slew of people from Ireland that had like different explanations for what the ring means. There's obviously the traditional version of it, and then there's all the slew of other ways that people are like, oh, nowadays it's not traditional. It doesn't necessarily have to mean this or that. Some people wear it for friendships and other this, that, or the third. And so I was like, oh, okay. So thank you for the education. I didn't realize that. Then then somebody responded to me also. They were like, oh, it's actually associated with a promotion she's doing with this company. And so then I was like, oh, okay. So there was all these multi-layers of people giving me feedback on what the ring was and what the ring meant. And then Dr. Sharon did a video on it, like that was very like specific about like the things that she noticed, and I thought it was one of the coolest videos. Now it was behind like a friends only thing, so I remember I didn't extend what she had stated beyond it because it was a friends only thing, and then I started hearing it outside of it, and I think she shared outside of it as well. But like I really do heavily respect, or at least try to very much respect, when people want to keep things on a smaller scale, and because I feel like they're doing that intentionally and they want to have it reach the eyes of the people that will understand the context in which they create. And so I remember thinking that was the coolest thing, and I was like, oh, I never knew that, and oh, that would be very cool. So that really gave me another element to what the potential of the ring could be. And so I guess my answer is I don't know what the ring means to Nicola, though. I don't. I don't know, because she's also the one who I think designed it. And so that's why I think like Dr. Sharon had pointed out all these like specifics about the ring that were unusual for a traditional ring to look like, and why it was unusual, right? Which I found very compelling. So at the end of the day, like it could just be a ring that was brought in for Bridgerton to promote Bridgerton and to promote the company and whatnot. It could be a promotional thing, or it could mean X, Y, and Z. So I don't know if I genuinely have a definitive, like I know for a fact this is what the ring means to her, because I genuinely don't. Like, because every one of those starting points that I had were all convincing for different reasons. Because if I said it is a ring that signifies a relationship, I would have proof as to why that makes sense. If I said it is a promotional ring meant to celebrate Bridgerton and that is its purpose, I have things that I can point out that would make sense as an option. And then if I went with what Dr. Sharon was saying, like she actually did a very convincing video as to why she thinks what it is. So I know that that's not an answer to you, but honestly, like that I have no definitive thought on the ring, personally,
Well, I
because
mean,
there's so many options.
I think all of this is just supposed to be opinion because I'm
Yeah.
not, because as I say, I give no definitive on anything. So, yeah, like it's just, it's for these three specific questions that were sent over on Lukola. Um, it is purely opinion and it is purely speculation. And in all honesty, similarly to the argument that Phoebe just made on there can be an explanation from all of those different avenues, means that none of us know anything. All of them. It could be all of the above and the multiple.
Oh, that's true. It could be a mix and match. It could be multiple meanings. I mean, the way I presented it, I made it sound like each of this could be one, is one or the other. But in reality, it could be a melding of all three to some degree. Who knows? Or none at all. It could be another option that's not even on the table. That's the wild thing.
Yeah. And that's just, and I think that's usually most of the case with anything revolving the shipping stuff, because like none of us are going to know definitively, and so all of these options are out there. And so a lot of times my playful answer when folks DM me is all of the above, because like if well, one, two, if that's the only thing that I have a bandwidth for, I'm gonna say all of the above. But my and here's the thing with the ring specifically, because I wanted to bring it up because I feel like it's one of the safest things to speculate on, because it's like this innocent little object. We're putting a whole lot of meaning on it, and it doesn't hurt anybody. But I find it interesting too, because again, how Phoebe always says whenever she gets on a live is we can only do I statements and we can only come from our own lenses and our own experiences, because that's all we got. And so I found it interesting that a lot of the ideas revolving around the ring really says a lot about the individuals putting out those ideas. Because if you're of a more romantic nature, you have more capabilities of seeing all of those possibilities for that ring. I am not.
That's so true. I am such a romantic, so I am open to all these possibilities.
Yeah. So, as I say, the thing that makes our friendship so beautiful is how I'm constantly saying this little line in between us is the coin. He's like Ben Franklin, and I'm like, I'm the eagle. And so yeah, like I was honestly astonished with how many theories came out of this ring when it first popped off. I was like, because my initial thought was just simply that she had purchased a ring for herself, because I would have, and I still want that damn ring. And if I pull out 11,000 pounds, I would drop it in like 5 seconds. No one would need to convince me. And so when all of the conversations started happening on later on about how the brand had to change the wording because of all of the stuff about being an engagement ring and kind of a little bit of the dramatics that happened of it, you know, being wedding vibes and whatnot, and how that got changed. My initial thought, and this was just where my brain went, because, you know, was that the brand was like, we've designed this 11,000 pound ring. The basic ladies out there cannot afford this ring unless it's labeled an engagement ring, because who else would be dropping 11,000 pounds? And so we have to market it as an engagement ring. And then when all of the brouhaha happened, I think they just backtracked in order to, you know, take the heat off of it, because it technically, I don't think it was ever an engagement ring. I just think Okay. Well, one, I've always been of the mindset that Nick is she's a bad bee, powerful bad bee, and she has impeccable taste. We've all seen this. She likes high quality things. And so for her to design this beautiful ring, and as she has mentioned on the world tour, that she didn't think that this experience that her and Luke experienced is ever going to happen again because it's a once in a lifetime thing. Her leading a show like this kind of popularity, the world tour, etc. They have said multiple times that this was just like a once in a lifetime thing. That she really wanted to honor that, and then that's why she designed this ring. So I just genuinely just thought that it was just like a pat on the back for herself. It just happened to be 11,000 pounds. Which again,
what is 11,000 pounds in US?
Right now, I think last time I checked was like 1,300.
The what is it?
13,000, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
I Leia's at 14K.
Yeah, the exchange doesn't help. So yeah, the likelihood of me getting this ring is slim to none. But yeah, that's just how I interpret. Because again, as a single woman who likes to buy expensive things for herself, the first thing I would have done had I led a show with my sexy co-star, traveled the world, where I was like a lead, and like I wanted to commemorate the whole experience and added details in those little hands that may be related to Colin and even related to my sexy co-star. And, you know, just as a reminder, because when I'm 80, how she has said too, like, you know, getting her tits out because they're beautiful and perfect right now. She wants to look back at this experience and be happy and proud of it. So if she's going to be sporting that 11,000 pound ring, when she's 500 years old, she's going to be able to look at that hand and be like, oh, I remember that with that one sexy co-star. So yeah, I don't know. That's where my brain went. And so when all of the other theories came out, I was learning a lot because I was like, wow, the possibilities of this are endless. So yeah, but anyhow.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so a while, like a long time ago, I don't even know if this person is still in the space, but a person said that they had a question for people, but I don't know if they ever asked it. And I don't know if they're in the space still. I'm trying to scroll back up to see if I can see. I don't know if I can find the person again, but if they happen to be in the space and they knew that they had wanted to ask a question, feel free to ask it, but I don't know if the person's still in space, to be honest. Oh, wait, it's Rachel Dodd 81 says, I have a question for everyone. So if Rachel Dodd is still here,
Yes.
Okay, it was me. Rachel Dodd 81 said, okay, Rachel, feel free to ask your question. If we can't answer it, we'll let you know, but hopefully we're able to. Especially if it's just an opinion question. Nothing nothing
Too deep.
something that we should know. So maybe Rachel is still typing it out. But I just wanted to call it out because I know it was way up there somewhere at some point.
I love how Jules says, you mean you wouldn't want to be immortalized in a panini painting? I personally would love to be immortalized in a panini painting. But yeah, I mean, that ring is powerful, yo. The minute I saw it, I was like, I need it.
Now I don't, and hold on. I mean, not hold on. The whole thing is, I'm wondering, Rachel, did you put in the question? Because here's the thing: sometimes TikTok, like doesn't allow. Oh, here it is. Okay. Has anyone watched the TikTok video for the Doctor Who special with Nicola? Because I noticed something. Okay, no, I have not seen it. Feel free to share.
Yeah, go ahead and share it. It's on. I haven't watched it yet because, guys, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, and every Christmas special makes me cry, and I can't right now. Like, I can't let myself break down right now.
Mm.
Like, I can't fall apart at this
Because
point.
what platform is it on again? Because I don't think I have the platform. Disney?
Disney
No.
Plus.
Yeah. See, I don't have that, so I wouldn't have been able to watch it anyway. Well, though I'm sure it's somewhere, like in pieces in TikTok. It's, I wanted to. Oh, but everybody says they loved it. The vintage camera is what everybody's saying. Is
Yeah.
what they noticed probably.
Okay, so was it a character thing, the vintage camera, or was it like hanging out in the back, or nothing with it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Um, did anybody answer Ronnie's question about it? Like,
Yeah, she said they said it's a behind the scenes thing.
oh,
But it's a gift from Luke. Is that confirmed, yo, or is that?
the camera.
Yeah.
I think that's confirmed that he gifted her a camera. Now I don't know which camera or how it looks like, but I think uh for sure he did. But Donna said that was filmed a year ago, though, right? Which
I think
I
so.
don't know if it was. Because he gave her that camera, I think, for her birthday, right? And what's her birthday? January, February, somewhere around
January.
there?
January.
Okay, January of this year?
I don't know. I don't know when. Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming this year.
I think it was this year that she's supposed to have gotten the camera. Well, if they filmed it last year, then that would have been pre him giving her the camera, though.
Yeah, no,
Unless he gave it to her earlier. But
Jules was correct. A year ago, before the world tour, gift from 2023.
oh, the gift was from 2023, not 2024. Okay, then that makes a difference.
I'm glad y'all can keep this straight, because
Rachel Dodd 81 said if you watch the part that shows Nicola when she is speaking about the day in the life of Joy.
okay, I'll have to look it up.
Okay, yes. So
You took a screenshot, Rachel. Why don't, can you DM me and DM Phoebe so we can see it, please? Um, someone saying 2022. Well, either way, I mean, if she got the camera early and she's still kind of using it for behind the scenes stuff, that's sweet.
but I mean, they can't email us pictures on TikTok, can they?
Uh,
I've never been able to get pictures on TikTok.
no, but on Instagram.
On Instagram, though, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, though, Rachel Dodd 81 or Ronnie. Now that I think about it, because right after you said that, I was like, but I do have an email, boccegohawks@gmail.com, though I haven't looked at it in ages because I haven't been very active. So hopefully nobody has tried to email me in a while, except for all those all of those fake things where they're trying to have you promote their stuff and they're like, we just love your content and believe that you're the perfect person. I was like, stop lying. You know, you've never looked at one thing that I've ever done.
I didn't film those. I'm just like, no.
Yeah, I mean, it's like cut and paste. Like, I always cracks me up when they're like, we just love your content and believe that you're just the perfect person for this. And I'm like, yeah, right.
I love those scammers too that pretend to be celebrities that sneak into your DMs and like they all say the same thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's boccegohawks@gmail.com.
And Phoebes will send it to me.
Yeah, then I'll send it to Ronnie. We'll play telephone that way.
Yeah. Okay, so the third one was, are they together now? So have you been convinced of things? Because I think
Well,
you've heard.
that was also our conversation a few days ago, because there are folks that were talking in my live that they believe that they're married now, and I was saying that I don't personally feel like that is the case. So for me, I am more likely to believe that Nicola is currently with Jake, though I would prefer that I'm wrong. I'm also open to the idea that they are just friends, just hanging out, like all the other friends that she has, because that is also makes sense to me. Or she might not be dating anybody at all, and that also makes sense to me. Now, is it possible that there's a secret relationship? Obviously, anything is possible. One of the things I always say is anything is possible, but for me, more things are probable, and so I tend to go in my brain about like what I think is more probable. Um, and so that's why I'm not in the place where I'm ready to say like I think that they're in a relationship, whether it's dating or I mean I'm more okay. Let me backtrack. I'm more apt to believe they could potentially be dating, kind of situation, one of those things. If there was no if there was no other situations that's happening right now, because I feel like they've gotten a lot of backlash and hurt because of people assuming that they were with other people. And so and this is going to sound like a repeat to other people, um because they were in that live with me, but I just basically was like, I have a hard time believing they're going to put on a fake relationship or make people think that they're in other relationships. Not It's hard because they never definitively ever say anything, so it's like it's all speculation no matter what. But like the impression is hard, right? Like that they're potentially with these individuals, even though now Luke has gone so silent that I'm like, I don't even know if he's still with potentially um who people are assuming he's with. So I'm not even sure that's still happening because he's just so MIA. But like every picture that we've seen with Nicola and Jake are like, it could be very easily just friends. But I do understand why people feel like it must be more because they're constantly together in a lot of these things lately. But then a part of me is like, I have friends like when Chad was still alive, like I was always with him.
Right.
He was always with me, and we were not dating. So it's so incredibly possible for people to just be together a lot and enjoy each other's company, and it be completely platonic. So that's why I'm like not. When I say I'm more likely to believe that she's dating Jake, I'm not fully convinced that she is. It's just that because I feel like she could just be friends with him. But I understand the people who are wholeheartedly convinced that she is with Jake. I can understand where they're coming from based off of what they're seeing. So I can understand that. So that's why I'm like, I can see it. But I can also understand people who say, like, I think they're just friends. I also can see that. And then people who think that she's not with anyone at all, I can also see that. So see, my brain is more likely to gravitate towards those three options. But when someone says they're married already, like everything in my brain goes no. Like everything in my body goes no. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm right. It just means that there's something in my brain that's telling me like I don't it feels like a too big of a leap for me. Like I can't go there. Um and that's just the honest to goodness truth. Now uh but the biggest thing that motivates me is understanding where people are coming from, because for other folks it's not a big leap. It's the logical leap because they're like, look at all the clues, here are all the clues, and I've like not been, looking at any like the things that I look at, I see it differently than them. But then I also haven't looked at everything that they're looking at either, because that's just not where my brain's been. As you know, as and you've had your stuff too going on personally. Like we're just not there. We're not gonna like, we're not with like magnifying glasses on things, right? But it is just my like my honest opinion to folks where I'm like, I can do these three. I can do these three options pretty easily in my brain. The one that I cannot do is this. I can even almost inch to the like potentially like somebody could be hiding, but like not to this level. I have a hard time with that. But that, but again, my biggest thing as a person who's like having a platform and discussing things with people who see things differently than me is like, I just want to understand why it doesn't feel like a big leap for someone else, because nobody actively thinks something that they don't believe is true. You know what I mean? I'm saying like nobody actively thinks I'm going to think something that isn't true. Everybody thinks that what they think is true. So I need to understand like how did we get here where this feels like the more logical decision or choice to believe in. So
what I find interesting about that though, and the the person that asked the curious part of me um, is typically when folks look at something and they get presented a certain, like an array of items, whether it be photographs or typically when we're all consuming social media and a picture drops and whatnot, I'm just the way that my life functions and the way that I function in my day to day, I'm looking at something for about 5 seconds and I don't do a deep dive. And I very rarely revisit. And then every now and again, if I'm in a space where there's folks who like to discuss it a little bit further, I partake and consume a little bit of those individual analyses and then kind of move on with it. It's just kind of like on a superficial level. I don't really take it in too deeply. With some of the theories that come out, like specifically like what you're saying, I agree with you on the three stances because I do think anything's possible. And again, similarly to the ring, because everything is possible, that means we know nothing. And so similarly to you, I also can't put two and two together when it comes to them already being married because I feel it falls along the same line as folks saying that Katrina's kid is Sam's. But that's where my brain goes based off of stuff I've experienced in the past and what I've seen in the past. But that's just the way my brain filters it. And again, this is personal. It's just I'm coming from my own personal lens. But I think what I find interesting and what I would want to ask is, as much as we want these folks together, because ultimately I feel like that's the whole point of the ship, is you have to find all of those puzzle pieces in order to make that theory work. How much of those puzzle pieces are being forced together versus just existing? Because I haven't seen any of that analysis really. So I'd be curious to see it, to see how folks got to that.
I think they said that there is a Tumblr of some sort out there that walks through like step by step like things that they feel like they have seen that are like the signs. But like for example, like one of the first things that they shared was like the ring. But I said, see, like I can see so many different things for the ring. Sure. Nothing's so definitive for me. I said one of the things this morning in my morning live was just that I think one of the things that I hope, like, if I'm wrong, it won't hurt me. Like what you know what I mean? Like if I'm wrong, and I hope I'm actually wrong, right? Because as a Lukola shipper, I'd rather have it be Lukola, right? So I'd rather be wrong. But if I'm right, it sucks, but it is what it is kind of situation. what I worry about, and at the same time, I'm like, I shouldn't worry about it because at the end of the day, everybody's grown and everybody has their autonomy and everybody um, has the right to like make their own decisions. I just don't want people to get hurt. Like I love Cindy says here, if I am wrong, I will live. It's been fun. Which is important for me to know that Cindy feels that way because um, that's the only concern I have for folks. It's like I don't want them to have like to be so convinced of this, and then if they end up being wrong, that they get really really hurt. Like if I don't want them to feel deceived, and I don't want them to feel like someone like led them down to believe something that wasn't true. Now, if it turns out to be true, I think everybody would be excited. Who wouldn't want that to be true? Like, I think everyone would be excited.
I oppose that because I want to be wrong, but I also don't want them to already be married because that means we missed it.
but then at the same time, what if we didn't? That's another theory I think some folks have.
Oh, what, that they're just engaged, that they're not married yet?
No, that maybe we did see it.
What? Never mind. I don't want to know.
I'll tell you in a DM.
I don't want to know.
Okay,
yeah.
then I won't tell you in a DM.
You can tell me in a DM. That's fine. I just don't want to get thrown into a deep end right now because I don't know if I can handle it. Yeah. The as far as like the different options of them, you know,
zigzag. Sorry.
I missed it.
You have to scroll up then.
Oh, you mean the wedding in the show? Got it. Yeah. The general question about them being or like the status basically of their relationship. I've never had
a real quick statement. Enfant is Yella. I don't know who the we are, but the we is not. Does not include we. But we are sharing that there are folks that do believe that, and so I was sharing that for me because I don't think that. I try my hardest to understand how people arrive to that conclusion. Right. So sometimes I do have conversations with folks because, I mean, some of those folks I deeply respect. So I know that people don't actively believe something they don't think is true. That's the thing that always I come back to. And why is that important to me? Because, okay, obviously some people are like, there's truth. And just because you think something is true doesn't mean it makes it true. 100%. Just because somebody thinks something is true doesn't mean it makes it true. But the reality is none of us know anything definitively. That's the thing. And whenever things are up in the air like that, it's easier for people to feel like they're picking up on all of these clues. And that's what the folks who believe that they are married already are saying, that they believe that all of these clues have been laid out. And to them, it's clear as I was going to say clear as mud, but that's the wrong statement because then they wouldn't be clear. Clear as I don't know what. Water? So yeah, clear as like water in a very tropical place. No. So for them, it's very clear. To me, it feels like a very big leap. Right. So I just wanted to make sure, like, because I didn't know when you came into the live, so.
No, it's good to reiterate because there's two things that I want to touch on based off of just this one topic. One being the fact that I can't definitively give an opinion, even loosely, on what I think about the status of their relationship because I don't feel comfortable doing it. And it's mainly just because it is all purely conjecture, and in all honesty, I just don't care. because the end game is the end game is the end game, regardless on if they're taking if they're deviating now, I really don't care. I'm hoping our girl is getting it every which way, however she did, where well pleases. So that's just my own personal take. So I just I don't care. But and in all honesty, if it's folks we respect and care about creatively, I have high expectations for Luke as far as to what I want to see him do. I've mentioned this in I don't even know how many chats, comments, etc. I need that man in a musical. I need him on stage immediately. I need to find a reason to fly to New York or the West End or whatever to see him on stage. I need Nick to get into more projects so that she can win an Oscar. There's aspirations I have for them that transcend them being together. Do I want to see them together? 100%. Do I think they'll make beautiful babies? 100%. But do again, as a perpetually single person, a relationship is not a priority for me. And so I want them to be successful, well-rounded individuals that can push each other to be the best version of themselves, kind of like Tom and Zendaya. So, that's what I'd like them to do. But as far as their status at present, I just don't have an opinion. But I feel like the conversation and everything that Phoebe is saying about having an open mind and asking the questions is why I'm constantly, and if you guys are on my page and have been on my page for a while, is why I'm constantly talking about parallels. Because even though we're talking about super light and fluffy, meaningless crap, honestly, not holding an open mind and being able to hold a discussion respectfully with someone that you so wholeheartedly disagree with is why our world is in the state that it's in. Because all of this bleeds over to more meaningful things. And that's when I get frustrated, because if I'm seeing people shutting down and being mean to each other for this stuff, it makes me frustrated. Because I see how this bleeds over into our day-to-day and our real life. And that's what angers me. And sometimes why I just don't have the bandwidth for it. And then after everything that went on in November and all of the news that keeps breaking, because I feel like this past month has basically been a year already, it's becoming increasingly more tense. And so in both the fandom and in real life. So I genuinely would encourage folks to, if you don't have the bandwidth to handle the opposites and all of the opposite talk and opposite thought, to either pull back, similarly to how I've been, where it's just like, let's just not engage, or just stick to the little corner where you're at. But if you do have a little bit of a bandwidth to extend courtesy, to just hear people out and where people are coming from. Because as Phoebe says, people aren't willingly, they're not haphazardly believing something. They're usually believing it with their full chest. And there's got to be a reason for that. And you can't approach someone with a very specific kind of tone that immediately puts them on attack mode. Mm-hmm. We get nowhere. And so, as I say, it's probably more important to do that with stuff that matters. But we're all kind of sharing this space. And the second segue from that is I've been getting a lot of DMs, and this has been for months now, where if I'm initiating a conversation or if I'm participating in other creators' experiences or lives, or they see me in a space of comments, I've been getting a lot of concerned DMs of who all I'm talking to. So I'm getting DMs of like, oh, I've seen that you're participating on so and so's live, or I see that you talk to so and so. I want to give you a warning. I'm as much as I appreciate that stuff because it's innocently meant. People are concerned because either they hear things or they've seen things or what have you. And I get, people care and people reach out to people to say, I have these concerns. I want to make sure you're aware in case you didn't have the intel or whatever. I always appreciate it because I want to hear where people are coming from. But there's two things. And Phoebe, you can check me on this to make sure I'm saying this right because I'm doing this off the cuff. I didn't plan this. I need the other side of my coin.
Well, I don't know what you're gonna say yet, so. And I think you might not know what you're gonna say yet either.
I'll shoot this on the cuff, off the cuff. In that good place where folks are coming from when they hear something, we've got to take a step back. And I say we because I think we're all guilty of this when we get caught up in the moment, of processing and listening where it's coming from, and probably digging a little bit more into these experiences as far as where it's stemming from. Because a lot of times because I work a lot, and I don't know how many people really know that you don't necessarily have to step into a live. You can be scrolling, and if people that you follow are on live, you don't have to step in. You can preview it before you step in. There's a few folks that I follow where I've lurked on certain lives and I haven't been the most inspired by the conversation that's taking place. Some of the conversation has been really negative and has been about specific people, et cetera, et cetera. I personally don't judge anyone, and I don't think anyone is inherently bad that I follow. And so there's other folks who interpret such things and immediately blacklist people. And I think fandom and social media kind of works in that way where it kind of fosters cliquish behavior, and people are in such a hurry to have a feeling of acceptance and validation and belonging. And as soon as they find someone that they click with, they almost go evangelical and believe everything that individual says, which again parallels because look at reality. And so I think a good habit, and which is why I also have a very versatile follow list, if you guys are aware, is I tend to just kind of make an individual opinion on things. And similarly to the conversation Phoebes has had in the past of the people starting at F and waiting for people to like work their way up to A, or starting at A, where Phoebe usually lives, having folks, prove her wrong and end up getting an F. I'm typically at a C. So I give everyone a C, and then you go up and down from there. And then I decide as an individual of how much I actually want to interact with said individuals. But I genuinely want to invite folks to analyze how many of the people that you follow, and not just in this fandom, I just mean social media in general. How many people do you follow that are fostering division? How many people that you follow are creating content that negatively speaks more about other people than actually creating stuff of joy? That's just something that I want to bring up generally, because I feel like there's a lot of the divisions that have taken place within the fandom specifically have been people just kind of taking other people's word without really analyzing for themselves. So, as I say, we're all grown, and as much as we want to be accepted and stuff, I think it's an important question to ask on like how many people are just spewing negativity versus not. Just a thought, food for thought.
I remember like really early on in doing content creation, one of the biggest decisions I had always made was I would never speak on, or I don't speak on any content creator negatively. Um, and if there was ever a beef, which I don't have beef with people. I mean, maybe people have beef with me, but I don't have beef with people. Like I can't help it if people might have beef with me, which I don't think anybody has beef with me. If they do, I am wholly unaware of it. But hypothetically, if I did have beef with somebody, that would just not become public. Just as a rule of thumb for me, simply because a lot of the people I would have overlap with each other. And the worst thing I feel like I could do this to people is make them feel like they have to choose. And I don't want people to ever have to choose, because whatever my personal issues might be with one person is not the problem of the audience. Or at least for me, at least, I don't feel like it should be, because it's hard if like, so I said to folks, like, if you like somebody's content, but either they're bad mouthing me, which I don't think anybody does, but if somebody does, I don't know. But like, if that happened, like, I wouldn't want somebody's like, oh, I can't follow this person if they really still like their content. You know what I mean? Like, unless that's really their own personal choice that they want to make. But it's like, it shouldn't be like, oh, you like that person, well, I don't, therefore you can't like them too. Like that, I understand where it stems from, right? Like, it's kind of like when people are like, if you're friends with me, like, you show your loyalty by not being friends with, I get like the sentiment, but because there's just so many people that overlap with each other, it's a big fandom, but it's also a small fandom at the same time, in the sense of like how much it overlaps with each other. Like, it's just something that I've always felt like is like, those are things that need to be addressed
as individuals.
But I at the same time understand that people handle things differently, and they have different reasonings for it too. So,
but as I say, I think a lot of those behaviors people can also take based off of their own personal experiences in the real world and their histories to see if that's a red flag for them.
Yeah.
I personally, one of my biggest pet peeves and one of the biggest ways to get me to do something or not do something is if you give me an ultimatum.
Yeah.
Someone gives me an ultimatum, you made the decision for me.
Yeah.
So one of the first videos that I posted, and I want to say is probably like back in September, was a warning saying that, because I saw the writing on the wall I saw it before I started getting the DMs. If y'all start seeing people posting shit that gives you an ultimatum or recommends you not follow somebody, that might be a red flag. Just from my own personal experience. I posted that ages ago. Has it changed? Obviously not. But the reason the writing's always on the wall is because it's a behavior that society ingrains in us. We see it's been happening since high school. This is high school behavior. It's cafeteria behavior. It's just what happens. And so again, I think in the cafeteria room that is TikTok and other social media channels, again with the social validation and acceptance, it just kind of happens. And so and again, I see a few comments like similar to Rena, who was saying, I mean, it's just a fandom. I'm just here for the fun. It's not that deep. I'm saying typically everything that I post and everything that I say, as I had mentioned during the my election breakdown, was that everything that I say usually has two things going on at the same time, because I always draw parallels to what's happening in real life. So though I agree that this isn't that deep and it's not meant to be that deep, but I want y'all to take these recommendations and apply them to the real world where it could potentially really be impacting things, as far as to where folks are getting information, communication, stuff like that. So if we can practice it on this superficial light stuff, we get better at it out there. Just my own personal take. But yeah. So division bad.
The what? Say that again.
Division bad.
Yeah. I mean, and as you've said, like one of the things I always say is like, and I try as hard as I can. Sometimes I forget, and I try to remind myself to always just speak from an I statement. And one of the hardest things, right? Like whenever things happen, like sometimes there's things going on in the fandom, and I used to tell this to people. There's things going on in the fandom, and I'm genuinely, wholeheartedly unaware of, because I'm not trying to stay aware. Like it's kind of like when I found out I was getting attacked on another forum. So that is one of the things where I did find out some people didn't like me for some reason, and I was like, what happened? And that was when the whole like subscription thing was going on and all that stuff. But the thing was, like, when I was told, like, there's this segment of folks that dislike you and are saying all these things about you in a specific platform, like I told people, oh, I don't need to know. Because other people's opinion about me is none of my business, and I'm not going to change their mind. So if they've created an image of me in their brain, me defending myself is not, like, it has no value. Right. Because the decision in their mind has already been made. And I said, and I'm a strong believer that if a person has a friend tell them this person is this horrible individual, who are they going to believe? A stranger or a friend? Right. So that's why the weight of a friend, and that's why you probably get that sometimes, Roni, right? Because at the end of the day, like, people are as much as, people say, like, okay, make your own evaluation, don't assume things about certain people just because other people have told you about them. People are still going to base it off of friendship, and and if a friend tells them this, they're usually assuming the friend is telling them the truth. And the person is probably telling them the truth from their own personal experience, which might be different than what your experience would be with the person. You know what I mean? But it's such as I'm like saying all of these things, The problem with my brain, Ronnie, is I literally think of how everybody could potentially feel.
Oh, girl,
I and sometimes that's a blessing and a curse. I mean, I know how I feel.
yeah.
It doesn't mute that,
Mhm.
but I always am like like I understand why these people attack me, even though it was based off of a lie, you know. But I also understand why people believe them. Da 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 da. You know, but that's why I also try not to like live in that. Like you can't. I mean, oh, well, I can't. I can't live in other people's like. um
Fictions.
yeah, yeah, I can't. I mean, because that's why I'm always like, if you know who you are, you know your character. Your reputation is just your reputation. Reputation is just literally what everybody thinks you are. Your character is who you are, and if you know who you are, it just doesn't. It doesn't have the same. It doesn't hit as hard.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
That's why I made those multiple videos about fake enemies.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what it
Yeah.
is. It's not grounded on anything.
Yeah.
And I'm the same as you. So like the part of the same coin is that a lot of times what happens to me is that I get irate and then I have a full on argument and discussion in my head with this other person without them actually being in the room and part of the discussion. And so I argue with myself from their end, playing devil's advocate in my own mind. And I get so tired of the argument that I forget about it. That's usually how I diffuse when I get irate about something. And so a lot of times when I feel that there's a tension with someone, instead of actually approaching and talking to them about it, I just argue with myself. Because a lot of times I just feel like it's like moot. And it's usually something more to do with me than them. Because I'm willingly giving them power to make me irate. So it's mostly coming from me. And it is exhausting. But
I will. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say real quick, Ronnie. I think also where my insecurities lie is probably when I am more apt to make foolish decisions. If I feel insecure about a thing in me, like it's, you know how like how I describe it is this: if I see a flaw in myself, like I recognize it, I'm ready to receive it when people say that that's a flaw in me. But when somebody says something that I'm not ready to see in myself yet,
Oh, sure.
that's I think when the defensiveness can easily come. So that's why I try to remind myself, like if I feel any sense of defensiveness or I feel any sense of like, I don't know how to describe it, like when I feel it in my gut, like this thing where I'm like I don't feel at peace. Usually it's because I'm hearing something about myself that deep down inside either I agree with, because if I disagree with it, it doesn't hit me, even if it's negative, right?
Yeah.
If it's negative and it's meant to hurt me, it doesn't hurt me if I don't actually believe there's any truth to it. But if somebody says something to me and I believe there's any truth to it, it will always hit. And I if I'm not ready to receive it, there might be like that whatever defensiveness inside of me. But like the content of my page changed because two people like commented something, and I like a part of me like fought, but then I responded in the end because I was like, okay, they're right. And the first thing was like my page was heavily talked about Antonia in the beginning, and and she was getting so much hurt or like backlash. And I did a video about like I don't want people like being mean to her because I didn't. And somebody's like, "Oh, that's rich for someone who's making so much content about her." And so I literally was like, I got mad, and then I looked at my content, and I was like, "Dang, that one was it that." And so I privated all those things, and then I was like, "Dang, I kept privating, and I was like, dang, that is a lot." And then that's when I said I no longer want to speak on any adjacent folks. And then I know that then that term adjacent has just recently come into question about whether people should be using the word adjacent. And I had to explain like why I brought on that term originally. And it came from, and the reason this came up was I got a comment. I did a song for, I did a song, and in it, in the like description of it, I said like, because Luke got a lot of like harm, or not harm, but like a lot of like flack for his adjacent, like this is, and Nicholas experiencing it too.
Right.
And the person said, I feel like this is a very dehumanizing term, and I understood where the person was coming from. However, the origins of it literally came from me saying to folks, I'm not going to speak on adjacent folks, and that was not about who they were dating.
Sure.
It ends up being a lot about people who they were dating, but it was actually about Antonia and two other people that was in Luke's circle. Mm-hmm. And so it was a catch-all statement. It just meant anybody who was not Luke and Nicola. I didn't want to center them, and that's why I used the term adjacent. It wasn't to dehumanize any of them or say they weren't important. I was saying they would not even be in my conversation, to be honest,
Yeah.
if it weren't for the relationship to him.
Right.
At that time. And so so I just didn't want that. So all to say, like, I'm thankful for folks that are willing to say stuff to me that make me always question my own decisions, because it did change the content of my stuff after that point forward, when that person called me out. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to actually have any content around adjacent folks. And at that point, that really helped me not to get into a lot of dramas, because a lot of dramas ended up swirling around that more than so. Because my post avoided that, I felt like I didn't get as many headaches. And the other thing was, one post that I did was about Nicola, and it was somebody who had posted something on Tumblr about like everywhere she's been, and they were trying to decide if she went to New York. Mm-hmm. And I shared that Tumblr, and that person says that's overstepping. That's too much and sharing too much information, even though it was just a collated thing,
right,
that somebody else did.
Yeah.
And I got really offended, and you could tell from the video that I felt like really like irritated by it. But in the end, I did take it down. And so, I mean, all to say, I know that's a convoluted, long thing to say, but all to say, like, nobody is ever going to make 100% the right decisions. Right. I do worry, just like you, whenever people feel like, oh, someone's a content creator, therefore, and you love them as a content creator, therefore they should be not held to, like, never questioned. Like, whenever people don't, like, say like this person will always be right and this person will always be wrong because this person said that this person's wrong, like that is like, it just becomes too much.
Well, just in general, like, people need to be okay with, like, again, like, anyone who's creating content or anyone who's putting anything out needs to be given the ease of flexibility, because we're constantly evolving and people grow and people change and people learn. And I feel like this particular fandom, and I've mentioned it before, because the cycle of this fandom has moved way too fast from what I'm typically used to. At the rate that people started shifting gears was so quick. And a lot of folks ended up changing their posting styles, how they did their lives, what topics that they talked about, because it's just a natural part of evolving. That's just what happens. And in all honesty, a lot of times what ends up happening is that's usually how the new wave of people start coming in, because there's more space. And so other people get comfortable because they're missing a certain type of content, and then they come in and they start creating content and getting in trouble themselves. So, that's just par for the course. Like that's what always happens in any fandom. That's never going to stop. But people need to be given the flexibility to change their minds and to learn from their mistakes, because no one is perfect. And I think everyone just wants like people to just like to make a mistake and like disappear. And like that's not how it works. Like you can't police people that way, because I've seen a lot of people get a lot of flack over stuff that they've done in the past, and by past I mean like literally like a month ago. And like all of a sudden it's just like, why are you still creating content? It's like, I'm sorry, but what? So yeah, I think it's wild, observing the organic nature of any fandom, but this fandom has been fascinating to me. But on a personal note, and touching on what Phoebe was just talking about, a little insight on me when it comes to like probably like the negativity at all from the fandom. I haven't really been privy to much like vitriol really like pointed at me specifically in regards to the fandom itself. But I know that I've heard rumblings that there's been like some people are hesitant towards me because of how many people I talk to, because I have open communication with as many people as I do. And it is because a lot of people expect loyalty. And it's not even the creators that are demanding it, it's the people that support the creators that are demanding it. And I think, again, this is just something for you guys to know about me. Any of my social media relationships, unless I know you in my personal life and I've met you in the flesh, I genuinely, respectfully don't care what you think. Unless you have a meaningful impact on my life. So I'm getting ready to meet Phoebe in a few weeks in the flesh.
We're gonna get some sushi or some clam chowder, whichever one, or both.
I'll take it or both. And so Phoebe in general isn't gonna be able to get rid of me anyway, but meeting her in the flesh will clinch it. I have my hooks in her permanently until anything happens in our lives where she's like, I'm sick of you, go away. And so that's just how I function personally. Now I have a long list of y'all, and most of y'all are in this chat, where if I have the pleasure and the wherewithal to meet y'all one day in the flesh, it'll be a very similar situation where you will not be able to get rid of me. But yeah, I mean, as I say, and how Phoebe was saying too, whatever opinion you have of me, without really knowing me in my day to day and how I function, and if you haven't seen me at my worst, where I'm like in the fetal position on the floor, I can't hold space for your opinion. I really can't. And so if you want to function in the sense of distrust or mistrust or not thinking my opinion or thoughts are of any significance, that's perfectly fine. I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm just making general observations, and I have that in my introduction in my page, where it's like, I'm just making general observations. You guys can take them or leave them, and it's all revolving around how fandom parallels society. That's my whole shtick here. And when this goes away, it'll be my whole shtick at Nerdy Curious, which was our whole shtick when I founded the thing. So, yeah, but the fandom in general is just a space to make friends. Ultimately, that should be the goal and the end result, regardless on which fandom you're a part of, because you're partaking and sharing something with mutuals and people who share that commonality with you. So everything else around that really shouldn't matter in the end. And as I say, shipping has been interesting and a learning curve for me because it's definitely a new type of fanning, fandoming. Um, but I just I think a lot of times where fandom becomes toxic is when folks start to tie their identity to things because they get so it becomes so integral to them. Um, and I've seen that happen. That's why Star Wars is so toxic. That's why like a lot of like the comic book guys are really toxic because it becomes their entire identity because it's a childhood thing. And I never thought I would see that bleed over here because, again, it's shipping and it's people in it, like real life individual people just living their lives. And so I never thought that there would be a crossover in that, but it's fascinating to me that psychologically it does. And I still don't understand it, but that's part of the analysis, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know where that stems from. I don't know how that's possible because I can get it with fictional work and I can get it with work that you've been attached to and exposed to since you were 4 or 5 years old. But it's interesting that it's like only a few months and it's like a couple. I don't know the psychology behind that, but yeah, interesting either way. So, I had a couple of other ones, Phoebes, but I think we've touched on the majority of them. Yeah, if you have anything else that you want to touch on.
Um, I did. I think we may have already touched on it, but I think one of the things that I was wondering more than anything is like um when we do see, okay, how do I phrase this properly? Um, how do I phrase this properly? Um, when I said sometimes when the friction happens when people disagree with each other comes from the rub of like when people feel like things are so obvious on their side and the other people think it's the opposite, right? Like the people think like it's so obvious that it's this, and other people are like it's so obvious that it's this, and both have this idea that the other people are being like are not seeing things clearly, right? um when do you think uh what do you think is the line where it really uh where how do I phrase this? Where is the line when people genuinely think it is dangerous? Like where it's no longer just differing opinions. What is the line when people think like this is actually quite dangerous? And the reason I ask this question is because sometimes I don't think we've having the differing opinions of like certain things that don't have like a clear answer. For me at least, if it doesn't have a clear answer, I'm not ready to be like gung-ho like you can't think this way because we have definitive proof that it's not this way. I it's like I guess my question is like when do people think it's considered like definitive proof like that you're now buffering against something that is blatantly like opposite of what you're claiming? That's such a poorly worded question, but do you understand what I'm asking?
From the well, let me make sure
Okay.
the safety part of it. Are you thinking? Do you mean from a psychological standpoint or a safety like a danger to the talent?
Danger probably to the talent
Okay.
because I think it's much harder psychologically because I think I'll go with danger to the talent.
what's difficult is though is that they're intertwined, because I think the unfortunate bit is that everyone has different lines. It kind of ties into, and again, paralleling, guys, I'm not making a stretch here. It goes hand in hand with the conversation that's so relevant right now with what Luigi did.
Mm.
So that, because there's, again, two sides to every coin. So similarly to that, there's a lot of folks who are arguing on the safety to the talent, that it's because they're in that industry, it's expected, the photography, the paps, yada yada yada. Again, a lot of this conversation is probably also going to come up when I do the live with Sammy on all of this celebrity culture and pap stuff. But I think it's hard to say that the fact, like, the reality is that most people wait until it's too late and a line is so crossed to the extreme, because we've seen multiple cases like Christina Grimmie and a bunch of other celebrities. I've posted about them before. I've made a post about this, guys, of like the least common denominator, the one who is usually lurking in the background, who is taking any content that's being done that might be a little bit too detailed, and they take it and they abuse it and they run with it. And unfortunately, a lot of people are of the mind that we should be taking the least common denominator into account when we're creating stuff, because we don't know who's out there. We don't know who's abusing that content. However, that ruins the fun for everybody, and this is why we can't have nice things. And it's really difficult to police that. It's really difficult to tell people, well, you can't post this because of what might happen. And so I don't know. My personal opinion, and again, it's just an opinion because it technically doesn't mean anything. I don't make the kind of money to make these decisions. But if it were up to me, apps wouldn't be a thing, and rag magazines wouldn't be a thing. And the only reason I'm of that extreme opinion, because I funnily, I had someone DM me a link to Des Moines, and I was like, can you give me the gist or send me screen grabs, because I'm not clicking on it. I made that a hard line for myself, where I just refuse to, like, I just don't want to. I don't want to give them the clicks. Mm-hmm. So and the only reason that I do that to that extreme nature is just because I feel like we are at the stage where any minute now it's going to be everybody. It's not just going to be celebrities. Mm-hmm. Like, all matter of privacy, all manner of just how much information is out there for everybody. I'm genuinely concerned of just like of where the line is for everyone. And so I feel like the more that line gets crossed for them, and that the excuse is it's just their job, then why are people recording random strangers out in public? Mm-hmm. Like, why is everyone's business like all over all over the internet? Like, people arguing and, just, anyone. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a fine line. And I'm probably on the more extreme side of just like, I just wish no one was being followed at all. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but I can't give a definitive on that either.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always a hard thing, and this was a discussion I had like 2 days ago, where I'm like, for some people, even having the discussion with folks that I think very differently on around like what their a relationship status is. For some people, like even hearing that conversation, some people already would might feel like that's an elevation of of what in their eyes would feel like misinformation, and it's like, and it's a hard conversation to have, because in the eyes of those folks that I'm having those conversation with, they have very logical reason as to why they've arrived to that conclusion. So, and me shutting down somebody does not change the fact that that conversation is still going to continue, and I'd rather understand it. And I know that people have different opinions of that. That's the thing, and it would all be still genuinely like valid. I think though the reality is like people who don't agree will still not agree, even if they're hearing it. You know what I mean? I think I think when people get concerned, I think it's because they're concerned people will believe it, and they don't want other people to believe it.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's what it is, because it's like it's not changing your mind hearing it, right?
Yeah.
But maybe, so I always go like, what is the main concern people have? Is it because people are concerned that people's minds will be changed to a perspective that isn't in agreement with them? Like that's so I don't know. So that's always like, what is platforming something that could be perceived as negative? I don't know. I just, I'm always like, there's a lot of wrestling that usually happens inside of me. There is a certain responsibility I do feel inside of myself. But I'm such a person driven by discussion.
Same.
And understanding people that I can't help but be genuinely curious, because when I don't like see something the same way, I'm like, how did you get there? How, like, but the thing that I always am reminded though of, like when I was like in the beginning of the ship situation, I realized that there were people looking at me in the same way.
Sure. Yeah.
As people are maybe looking at folks that are saying certain things that I don't personally see now. You know what I mean? So I have to remind myself, as far as everyone's concerned, just by the very act that they disagree with you, you're already seen as not being rational or not being in touch with reality, or all of those different things, right? So I mean,
and it always evolves to more extreme too.
The what?
And it always evolves to more extreme takes too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and so that's the thing. I think though, that's always the concern, right? Like, when does it go from like people just like genuinely thinking something to like, when does it get harmful? When it's like, how? Because there's certain things that I'm like, I hear, and again, like my body like reacts, because I'm like, ooh, like, so I'm like, if my body's reacting, is my body reacting because I disagree with it, or is my body reacting because I do think something's dangerous in the moment? Is there something
your body is reacting because, again, you're coming in from your personal lens, so without it being in your control, you instinctually put yourself in that position.
Say that one more time, sorry.
You instinctually put yourself in that position, in their position.
So, okay, yeah.
So if you're hearing something and it triggers something in your gut or whatever, is because you're like, well, I wouldn't want that done to me.
Yeah.
And so that's your line. That's that. But unfortunately, not everyone has the same line. And so that, I think, and a lot of times too, and I'm gonna use this. Well, I'm not gonna say the name, but there was a creator that I remember explicitly, and I was very impressed when this was said. Specifically said, someone had called out something and was like, well, what would you do if you had been in so and so's position, the talent? And she was like, she actually took a step and she was like, I hadn't thought about that. But some folks don't go that extra, don't have that instinctual moment. of immediately putting themselves in someone else's position. And when someone calls that out and you take that step and you're like, oh, I hadn't thought of that, and you actually think it and you see the person going through that thought process of putting themselves in that other person's position and thinking about the impact of the conversation, it's the most beautiful thing. I love seeing that process happen. Because I don't think it's instinctual for some people to put themselves in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
Especially someone else's shoes who are so far removed from us, because in all reality, we will never have a full perspective of what their life is like because they're celebrities. But to still have the empathy to put yourself in that position and imagine everyone that's taking your photo when you're just hanging out with your friends and you're just walking down the street and you're like going to the theater and you're going to eat and maybe you ate a little bit too much, or maybe you're on your period and you're bloated, and so on and so forth, and people are talking about, oh, she looks pregnant, she's with so and so and doing this and that, and it's like I don't know, like to me all of it bothers me, plainly. To me, all of that conversation, because I personally would not want to be scrutinized to that level. Similarly,
100%.
yeah, like and I would hate that, if I were someone who had the talent, I'm not, but if who's someone who had the talent and was discovered and was given the opportunity to be, side extra character number 5, and then all of a sudden I'm being papped for no reason indirectly, I would be annoyed AF. And people would just be on the internet saying, but it's the job you have, it's the industry, you're just supposed to let it happen. I'm sorry, no, absolutely not. And no, yeah, no, Rena, if I was famous, and in all honesty, I think I saw someone comment earlier, and this is just my own personal opinion on Luke and how he's been MIA. I genuinely feel, again, my opinion, I don't know the man, that after his experience with the world tour and the amount of limelight that was cast on him, I'm sure he was just like, no, I don't want this. I don't actually want this level of scrutiny, and so I'm gonna pull back. Because you do get to a certain point where it's just like, yeah. That's
why I said I'd rather be rich privately than famous, because fame just, there's no, to me, what is the perk of fame? Nothing really for me, because it's like literally when you think about it, everybody's up in your business, everybody has an opinion on your life, and they like to make it known.
Look,
like, I don't want it.
my own personal opinion, and you guys are learning more about me than anything else, is fame only functions for very specific type of people, and usually people who use fame and use it well is because they don't got anything else going for them. For example, Kardashians. My own personal opinion. So yeah, I just like, it, as I say, there's something for everyone. Certain things exist because that's just how certain facets of the industry unfortunately work. But
do you think celebrity culture is dying?
I think celebrity culture is going to revert back to niche definition. So I feel like celebrity culture right now is an umbrella term that fits way too many definitions. And I think that I don't know if you guys saw, I reposted a post from Drew Afwalo recently where she was speaking on the fact that a lot of Hollywood, traditional Hollywood culture has been, lifting their nose up to a lot of influencers coming into the space. Because a lot of influencers, specifically in her level, who are really high up, have carved a niche out for themselves in celebrity culture because they're known, they have things to say, people listen to them, and they are genuinely doing things that matter, like Drew. Um, and I think there's a lot of room there. So I think celebrity culture in and of itself has to be redefined and it has to be flexible in order for it to survive. If certain people who are within that space try to stronghold it, certain aspects of it will collapse. But I think there's a little bit more movement in it because I think that audiences are a lot more aware and are a lot more critical as far as to who is getting elevated. Like everyone is aware of certain behaviors. I think everyone would rather know if someone was behaving really, really badly before they get put into a certain position of power. I feel like that keeps happening. There's a lot of people who are toppling. Um, and I think that the audience is going to have a little bit more of a say as far as to who they want to see doing what and at what level. I don't think the traditional Hollywood system is going to like that very much and they're going to fight it. So it's going to be a while before it settles. But I don't think they have a choice.
Do you think paparazzi will end because people pap themselves these days, or people pap each? Like, I mean, like, I feel like people are. Do people not already expose? There's so many. Like, there's so much access to people nowadays. Is it? Is it? Is there? The whole thing is like, just like you. I have like, I don't know if you blocked DM, but I have. Like, I blocked them a long time ago, and so and I'm like, I'm just one person, but it's just I don't want to give them the impression that I want, like, I don't want to give them the clicks the same way. Like, I don't want to embolden that kind of activity. And I try not to look at things that are equivalent to that, but at the same time, am I 100 at it? No, but like, I try. Um, but I just wonder, like, if celebrity culture dies to some degree, or it's maybe evolves, or
It will evolve.
you know,
Won't die.
will the evolved version of it have space for paparazzi?
Paparazzi will always exist. And I think paparazzi, and I think this is why, because of PR firms.
Mm.
Because ultimately, the thing is, and from what we've been seeing also with all the PR talk, is that um, inevitably there are necessary photos that get leaked when like someone's been MIA for a while, and then it's like, here's a reminder that this person exists before a project gets released. There's some strategic things that happen that still kind of do like a psychological backup for the audience of just like, Matthew McConaughey hasn't been out and about for 5 minutes. Here's like a photo of him walking down the street, walking his dog, just to remind y'all that he's alive.
You, you know, you know what? That does make me wonder. Somebody did ask this question about the timing of the document that Blake's team put out. And I don't know when it went to streaming on Netflix, but someone had said, is it I mean, and I'm not saying they necessarily have any correlation, but does but did the conversation, now that it's on streaming, re-spark the interest in a movie for people to end up watching it. Um, and because afterwards I found out, like in the beginning, I thought it was already something that was filed in a court or all that stuff, only to find out it's not even filed in a court yet. It's not an official complaint. It's the pre of everything, and it's just given to. Then it feels like PR in itself. Like, right, everything's been PR, so it's like that whole thing, that whole document just made me did a little poke at my Pollyanna world and be like, okay, so everything is PR, really. I mean, not everything, but you can't even almost trust anything that you're looking at, because everything that you're looking at is bent to a particular narrative that people want you to lean towards.
Yep. There's just too much money. It's the thing. There's too much money involved. There's too many people involved. It's never just two people.
Yeah.
There's like hundreds of people, and then there's like the people with really deep pockets that are behind everything that no one ever talks about. Ultimately, it's them. So yeah, it's just like there's too many hands in the pot, and so it's just you just never know what you're really getting. That's what that's what I hate about all this too, because it ruins the product. Like, it ruins the art of it. Like I just want to enjoy a show and a movie. Like, I don't need all of the background stuff, but that became a huge part of it. And from what you were saying too about like maybe the PAPs going away because people are a lot more out there and putting stuff out themselves, from the people who are not influencers that are doing all of that themselves, and the people who aren't mainly making film and working in shows and stuff, um, typically don't even want to be doing that themselves. So they usually have someone kind of in the background advising, you need to, post this many times. You have a project coming up. Do this, and this. And then every now and again, when they're posting personal stuff, if they want to, it's like when they're on vacation or when they're having like a family gathering or whatever, and they're not posting regularly. For an influencer, once you get to a certain point, a lot of them are joining representation firms as well. So like one of the influencers that I follow on the regular, he has someone advising him on certain times, to post and certain things that he might, a relevant topic or whatever. So even they're getting advised now. So as I say, I feel like there's still someone behind the curtain. It's never just the individual. Once you get to a certain point, if it's just us lay people, we just do whatever. But yeah, I don't think any of that's going away. Thieves. It may evolve, but I'd be curious to see what Sammy thinks, because she's all up in the mix. I don't know if she has any insight or intel from talking to people in the industry on what she's seeing, but that's just my own personal opinion from as an outsider from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, there's so many things in the future that's going to be interesting, like the mixing of AI into all of that as well. That all will play a part about what people feel like they can even trust as they're looking at, because even though right now they don't know how to figure out the fingers, someday they will.
Yeah. I think they already did, actually.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, I think so. But there AI still has a little bit of a fight, because there's a few people who are pretty high up that are still fundamentally against it. Like, I just saw there's a Ghibli video that got released, and like the Miyazaki folks are just like 110,000% against it. They're like, this is like soul sucking. We're not integrating this into Ghibli film. Which I was like, more power to you. But and like Guillermo del Toro is the same, where he's just like, no. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. And Dee also wants to know when your live is with Sammy.
She's being thorough. So it's going to be sometime in January. We don't know when yet. If TikTok is gone, we'll probably do it on Instagram. It is happening. She's just kind of getting all her ducks in a row and finishing touches and stuff. She's been working on it for a while.
I'm so excited. I'm
Yeah.
so excited to hear and listen and learn.
I'm not entirely. I need to ask her actually because I'm not entirely sure if she's actually writing something like formally.
Mm.
Um, I think she might be, which I think is why she's getting all of her ducks in a row and stuff. But she's interviewed a number of people to get their opinions on stuff. So it's going to be an interesting conversation for sure.
For sure. It's an interesting topic in general. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm just it's gonna be her live, so like if it's still here, it's gonna be on her channel, or at least I'm gonna make her host. and then and then I'm just gonna be there and just be picking her brain and keeping an eye on the chat and moderating everything for her. But she's basically just gonna be playing professor and just giving her dissertation. So yeah.
well, it's been a lot of conversation and good conversation. Now, someone did ask if it was okay to put this on YouTube.
Yeah, that's
Is
fine.
that something you're okay with?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, because I was like, well, technically, I'm gonna have to ask Ronnie for that
Yeah.
permission. So,
No, that's totally fine. Trying to make sure I'm not missing anything. I'm pretty sure I got everything. I think the only last thing that someone just plainly asked me was that if the division of the fandom that we're seeing now, if that's ever going to improve, or if,
that's a great question, actually.
um, no, I don't like. I think that where things are at now, I think it's a fundamental breaking point because there's a few ideas, and I think a lot of people again have integrated a lot of what they're believing too fully into their identity for there to be any kind of compromise achieved. I think the only way where it might be a little less impactful for everyone on the outside, like that's not creating stuff, that's just consuming, is to just keep the chats open and being conversational with people in an open and polite way, and exiting anywhere that again is giving absolutes, definitives, and ultimatums. But if that's your type of space, though, more power to you. Yeah, I mean, when I was doing Nerdy Curious regularly, we always signed off with "Don't be a dick."
Don't be a what?
Don't be a dick.
Oh,
That was our sign off, and we still like live by that. So like ultimately, when we move around the internet, it's really difficult to not sometimes, and so it's just being mindful to just you know just try to avoid any spaces that bring that out of you. So yeah, thanks, Zigzag.
Retired teacher also wants to know: is there always a breakdown in fandoms?
Yes,
100%. Never.
but here again, here's the thing, guys. Again, parallels. When you think of any group of people, the larger the group of people becomes, the more issues arise because the more people there are, the more possibility of disagreements because of the different viewpoints, different backgrounds, different ideas. As beautiful as humans are in all of our complexities, the one thing we haven't mastered yet, well, there's a few things we haven't mastered, but one of them is giving each other space to just exist in whatever state we're in. For whatever reason, humans are so inclined to want to control everybody. Um, it's a toxic state. I don't know why that is, but I mean, we see it now in our day to day and in our leaders. Um, and so, yeah, there's always a fracturing point, even in the most frivolous things. It's unfortunate, but it's just humanity. So yes, there's always a breaking point, and you can track that and in any fandom. If you approach any fandom, they will all have a story about how they had an argument with somebody and they broke off and made another group. There's always subgroups. So yeah, this isn't anything new. Um, but as I say, there's low points and then there's high points and then there's slow points and then there's like heavy points and I think right now because there's just so much there's a lull in media because we're not getting photos and videos and stuff as much as we used to. Um, it kind of fosters a lot of fan fiction to be created because people are desperate to have a conversation and stuff. So, yeah.
Do you think? Well, probably gonna wrap up because now I want to eat food. But
Yeah.
but I will say, that's actually kind of late to be eating food. A part of me is like, should I just go to sleep instead? I know, but but do you think that there's going to be an uptick once season 4 comes out, especially if there's a promo tour again, or there is a lot more of pollen uh in within the show?
Yes. There will be a general uptick in Bridgerton when season 4 gets released because one, there's going to be a new wave of fans who watch it who probably haven't even seen Bridgerton, and so there'll be a new wave of fans who probably start all the way back from season 1 and then get reintroduced to season or not reintroduced but barely introduced to season 3 because that typically happens where it's not just the people who are familiar with the series, but we get completely brand new people who start watching it. Um, and a lot of those fans don't necessarily graduate to being perpetual fans. They might be like fair weather fans. So as soon as all of the season 4 stuff again dies down, they'll unfollow all of the social media accounts, and then you see like a huge drop in numbers. That's typical. Um, but yes, there will be a general uptick for Bridgie, and then there will most likely be an uptick for Lukola stuff if there one is a lot of Lukola in season 4, and two, if there is any sort of promo that's done. I personally am going to be very, very curious if the two of them decide to do even a little bit of promo together for season 4, based off of the response and all of the noise that happened this time around. Either they're going to be really for it or they're going to be too tired to deal with it again, to want to rile it up. That's
Yeah.
going to me. That's going to be telling to me.
Yeah. That's the only thing that does make me a little bit sad about how the turn of events really is. I love their natural chemistry with each other. And I'm sad that I don't think that the friction exists between the two of them or anything like that, or rather the need to pull back, not because they necessarily want to, but because they probably feel like they need to
Yep.
not cause an uproar.
Right.
And also, I didn't even know until after the fact that there were even like fights within like couplings. I never knew that existed until recently. Like I didn't know that there were folks that had issues with pollen because they felt like it was overshadowing their other couples. Like I was like shooketh over that. I was like, oh whoa, really?
I only knew about it because Nicola mentioned it on the tour.
Oh, she did?
Yeah,
I missed that. When did
because
she mention that?
even she mentioned it in a like a joking way, but because they used to be so active on Twitter, they
Mm.
saw the arguments that would take place, and I think that Nick and Luke experienced firsthand the hate that Pollen would get
Mm.
on social media, which I think is also probably why they ended up leaving Twitter. Um, and so yeah, like I think they were blatantly aware of the just the fandom stuff. Do I think that they took it to heart and like really super seriously? I don't think so. I think Luke is a sensitive soul, and I think he probably got because I know he mentioned from like the fictional angle of how a lot of fans were giving him grief because of what Colin did, because he had said all that negative stuff at the end of season 2 to Penelope, and I think there's something also there in fandoms where people cannot separate the fictional character from the actor, and because they have the actor there on social media, they immediately start like spewing crap to the actor about what a fictional character did, and it's like, guys, one, he didn't write it. um but yeah, so I think there's a lot of pressure there, so it depends on where they're at, where they may be cool with all of that coming back again on them. I mean, the attention, which cool, but I hope, but I wouldn't be surprised also if they would both be like, yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah. And I mean, and also they're just not
Right.
the main focus of the season. And even though they wouldn't want, like, just them being in a space together, because sometimes have the potential of overshadowing
Mhm.
um Luke and Yaren,
Yeah.
and that would never be their intention. So it would be a travesty if like they couldn't do anything because of that.
Right.
That would
And
suck.
I think also honestly, like, I think they're fine. Like I
Mhm.
don't that's this isn't commentary on their relationship with each other
100.
and their
Yeah.
friendship. Like I'm sure they're, yucking it up, hanging out daily, drinking, probably still watching videos and stuff of like, look at what these crazy people are saying. Um, and I think Shondaland and the production team are blatantly aware of just how popular Pollen actually is because we saw the numbers. They broke
Mhm.
records. And
Mhm.
so the likelihood of them actually having a prominent role in season 4, I think, is high
Well,
because
they did say they were going to be. I mean, like, what's her name? The person who got a lot of flack this last year.
oh yeah, yeah,
Who's the what's her role again?
she was a head writer.
Oh, okay. Is that? Oh, she was a head writer. Is that what she? I thought it was like a runner or something, or not runner, but like I forgot what her role was. But
The,
but the thing was like she oh, you had to be a writer because she's writing the script. Okay, got it. But yeah, she mentioned that there was gonna be more. There's gonna be more pollen this season.
right.
So I don't know what more means, but that's what she said at that time. She could have changed
Well,
her mind by the
oh,
end
I
of it.
mean, well, that's just it because there's two things there. Jess was probably saying that one because the writing was on the wall and just how big this was going to be and the popularity and all of the conversation revolving around pollen. Um, and because like the one of the main critiques from season 3 was of just how disjointed everything felt because of just how much story they were trying to put in, and a lot of people felt we didn't get enough pollen scenes. Um, and so she may have just been saying that to appease. And then 2, because the original dude was coming back to do
Okay, yeah.
like co-lead the show.
Okay.
What was his name? Y'all should know. because the chat's been dropping names left and right because y'all know everything.
The original lead guy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't remember his name.
What, or the do. I mean, what was it? Now I don't know what you're saying. Is it the do?
No. The main show, like the original
Oh,
show.
the main showrunner.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I can't remember
he
now.
left at season 3, and then Tom. Thank you, Tom Verica. No, not Tom Verica.
John Verica's a director, isn't he?
Yeah, that's the director.
No, and also it turns out that dude it was still working. It's just not the head showrunner.
Yeah,
Like
he just wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't the head showrunner at the time because he was working on something else. Is it Tom Verica?
no,
No, that's the director, Chris Vaughn. Is that right?
whatever. I
Whatever.
don't know if it's Chris Vaughn, but it's definitely not Tom.
Yeah. It's not Tom. I can't remember. Either way, the original showrunner who did seasons 1 and 2. Thank you, Chris Van Dusen. Thank you. We'd get there in the end. Yes. So the original showrunner, since he came back, he may have different opines. So yeah, I don't know. Well,
Yeah. Oh, so Jess is not doing it again?
no, she is.
Oh,
But
okay.
I think they were saying the way that he was stepping back in, that it was almost like, I don't know, because again, these are all PR articles where it's just like people are getting teased. So
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
yeah,
And then it's gonna be like, oh, he gets like she gets one bad, like she doesn't get a chance to grow
right
before you know.
yeah. So I don't know. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. But I feel like the likelihood of us getting more pollen in season 4 is high, strictly due to numbers, strictly due to money. It just makes sense because Netflix is not going to let them leave money on the table.
Yeah.
Netflix is all about the money; they don't care about anything else. So yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I mean it this time. And I'll put this up on YouTube. But any final word, Ronnie?
No, just guys, just be careful out there and be discerning and like zigzag abbreviated DBAD. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.